Blacklist.io. Music licensing reimagined.
Welcome back to the Tim and Steve Show. I am Tim Beard.
I'm Steve Morris.
How's it going, Steve?
Doing well. We kind of matched today. We both ended up wearing black.
I have my, I can't see it. Fuck Joe Biden shirt on. You got a different hat on today. You look weird, different with that hat.
Well, I just, live free or die. I am a resident now of New Hampshire.
Converted.
Yeah, I still have my Texas.
Oh, you are as well. You Texas people.
Sensibility.
You Texas people are really.
We stick together. We can find. I've told it before. We can find each other anywhere around the world.
You just get this little. You're like. I hear you, brother.
It's
Where
funny.
Are you?
There's tests that you do too to find out how so people when they find out, oh, you're from North Houston, whatever, and then you ask them, there's pronunciation of town names, and so as soon as they mess it up, Zeta, I think, had a guy trying to talk to her or whatever, and I was like, talking about North Houston, so she was throwing some stuff out there. He had no clue. And so she was like, loser. You know what I mean? It's just a... yeah, he crashed and burned on that one. He should have chosen wiser what he was trying to say, but anyway, it's just funny.
Yeah, you thought you'd fool the pretty little blonde. It didn't work.
No. She may not have been born in Texas, but she knows how to spot a real, true, Houstonian/Texan, or Northeast Houstonian.
So we have a correction.
Yes.
Because we already say this, that if someone catches us in something that's not true or not, 100% factual, whatever, and we've said a million times that if that happens, let us know and we'll correct it, because that's way more important to me than...
Yeah. We get up here and BS and throw our allegedlys out there, but if we get something factually wrong, we need to...
Yeah, it's different if it's my opinion. I'm not going to correct my opinion about something.
Right.
But if I say something and it's not... So we had said that the select board voted in non-public to terminate the lease with the school, and they didn't. And so because I was confused because I watched the previous meetings... So then Jeff emailed us and said, hey,
Jeff Kessler,
that's not correct. We talked about it on the February 13th meeting, and he gave me the time mark, which was hour 45 in or whatever. And so before the show, we rewatched that whole thing. And then on 2:20, towards the end of the meeting, rewatched that whole thing. And then, so, yes, they never... did it
voted or
in non-public, but they also never voted in either one of those meetings to evict us. So the 2:20 meeting was the last discussion they had about it. They didn't vote to evict us. The next day, the school got the eviction notice, so obviously it was sent by Hunter, and then they did an official vote on 3/6, which was last Monday, to evict. So, which is kind of an odd process to evict someone, then vote on it. Usually you have to vote on it. I will lay out that, the consensus in the room seemed to be they would have all voted anyways, but procedurally and to transparency of how the government works, they should have voted on it prior to the town manager sending, and I assume the town manager, he's the only one there that could send one, eviction notice. But, so, like I said before, I'll correct any information that we get wrong, because I'm not going to mislead somebody or purposely mislead somebody.
No, the reason why is because I've watched those meetings. Right, I was going off memory, and I never saw a vote, and so that's why I just assumed that they took the vote.
Right, because I think they had a non-public. Actually, both.
So it was an assumption, and where we assumed incorrectly. It was a discussion, like you said, where it was obvious that.
So thank you, Jeff, for reaching out and just saying, hey, you're wrong about that. And then actually giving me the information to go look, because it just made
it easier.
He didn't just say, no, you're wrong. We didn't actually do it that way. He actually said, go look at this, which, no, I appreciate that, because that makes my job easier to get the information out that way. So it's a pretty good show, though. We had, as of a couple minutes ago, 68 views on that show. So we got more views on that show fast.
What I'll also do is I'll go back into the description and I'll type in.
Do a better job with. Oh, okay.
I'll type in, hey, we made a mistake. We said they had a non-public.
And actually, one thing you said in the email, which makes a lot of sense, is we should put our email address
in the description. So you can just click on it.
Yeah. I never thought of that.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thanks, Jeff. That was a good point. That makes sense. That's a good idea.
I still disagree with the interpretation.
Yeah, we might disagree on some stuff, but I mean,
not on that part. I'm just saying on the like after rewatching it this morning, both of those, like rewatching their discussion, going back after watching Monday night's meeting. I mean, it was apparent that they have other plans for that, and it's been a long brewing process. This wasn't just in the last few months, and so it is what it is.
It is what it is. That's how I look at it.
I just appreciate Jenna trying to go and do the right thing and say, hey, look, this is, we want to make improvements. We don't want out of it. Like,
right.
And if we're doing it wrong, she took responsibility, the superintendent took responsibility, and they didn't care. Right? Like they all said, well, too late, and then they voted to evict us. And so I appreciate both the chairwoman, the chairperson, and the interim superintendent going and having that, trying to have that discussion. And again, I'll have more to say, but only, and to their faces.
Yeah.
Not for the show.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah, I'm just...
So that that's not misinterpreted, so that there's a conversation that can be had, so that if I'm wrong, I'm not just spouting off everything on here that...
No.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I know what you want to do, and that should be done at a school board meeting, because everything is based off of your position as a school board member and everything.
Right.
On the show, oftentimes we talk about these as our interpretations as
civilian,
citizens. We may have
on the outside end type of,
and we may have more insight on some things like school related or whatever because we're on the board. However, our platform here is about our opinions on things in town and federal, state, all that kind of stuff. So it would make more sense for you to do it in that setting, right? Not that you couldn't do it here, but it makes more sense to do it there. And no, I mean, I'll write something up. I never usually write anything up. Ever since I got on the board, I don't write much up. I just kind of go with it. But I'll write something up because I have some stuff to say too. But yeah, we can just all get better as time goes on and live, learn.
It's interesting too watching it this morning. When I watch live, because ever since Miss Irwin said, "Oh, you're having a shadow school board," I try not to go just so that it doesn't give that appearance, which, it is what it is. I've talked about it kind of before. But watching it, the sound was way better than watching it live. For when I watch it live, it's like a sine wave, the volume with some static, and it really gives me, I can only watch for so long, then I got to walk away. And so watching it this morning, the quality was a lot better. So
I have some serious issues with quality, which drives me nuts because the quality is the same as when I was there in 2000, 2001, 2, 3, like through there. And the technology is so much better. So, for instance, and I know it's not just, because they've got some cameras that are just crap. I'm like, dude, what is this camera? Like, the camera we use here is like semi-professional or professional, like $1,600 camera, which NCTV used to have cameras like that. Now they had some less expensive cameras that they had just the general public. But once they knew you were trained on it and you were responsible, they give you the better camera. So YNC, I think it's the Yankee Chronicle thing that is teamed up with NCTV that does the basketball games. So when I went to the basketball game, a month ago, whatever, I was curious because I'm like, the quality is crap. So if you watch it on NCTV, which I have cable at my house now, it's horrible. Like, it's blurry. It's just not. It's it's like
It's not the best, but
No.
I have thanked John Lund many times because not only were there in the whole COVID policy,
Yeah.
we were
Yeah.
able to,
well, here's what
and my parents down in Texas were able to.
this
watch,
is where I'm
so-
this is where I'm going with it though, is because so when I went to watch it, okay, because I know what kind of cameras NCTV has, then I went to watch it, and YNC has cameras equal as that, or maybe even better than that. Okay, so they're using professional stuff, so it has to be something.
like bandwidth. Or,
Yeah, it has to be something in that loop of stuff, and not in that aspect, the camera thing. So, and I think that's what's going on with the town,
like, when
especially.
you're watching it live.
Yeah, because the audio and stuff it's sometimes it's
unbearable.
It
Yeah,
goes like this,
God.
and that's not because someone's adjusting the audio like that. Because if it's tough to get good audio on a room that size, but it'll fluctuate with someone didn't make it a change over here. So I think there's some stuff going on there. So I'm not going to throw John on the bus on that.
I'm not. That's not my intent.
And that's what-
I've thanked Mr. Lund many times for.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, once I saw that the guys that are doing the basketball games and even the football games, when they do those, they're
Good
using
cameras?
Yes, they're using quality stuff. So there's something else going on, and it could be one of those things where here's the thing: we need $100,000.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And that very well could be what the issue is.
But yeah, there's a marked difference between watching it after versus watching it live.
So usually what I would do is when I watch the basketball games at home this past winter, I would just mirror it on my phone. So I'd watch it live on Facebook, and it would actually be a little more clear on my TV than, through the thing. So there's
like
just,
a pass through somewhere where it
there's
downgrades
just
the video
something
quality.
which, could come back to Xfinity, not...
It would probably be like us trying to do a live stream with mine, which
Right,
it would
'cause-
probably fluctuate because sometimes I have 200 megabits and other times I have 8
Yes, exactly.
because I'm using the Elon Musk satellite.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And because we've talked about, and at some point we really like to do live shows, but we need a internet connection that's going to suffice to do
We need a
that.
21st century internet connection.
Yeah, and you don't have that here. It's better at my house, but
I could have gotten an improved one. They did send me an email for $1,600 more. I could get a faster, bigger antenna, but that's a lot of money to invest
I will say though, your internet is pretty darn good considering.
compared to what it used to be. Like,
Yeah.
I wish we'd have had this when they were doing the whole COVID policy, so Zeta could have done her homework
we originally had
during the day.
so we originally had HughesNet at the other house, and it was
I
trash,
called
dude.
them when I moved here, and they advertised
Garbage.
25 megabits. And so she was like, "What are you going to use it for?" And I told her, she's like, "Well, you can't do video games." I'm like, "You only need like 4 megabits per second to do a video game." She's like, "No, we can't guarantee that." I'm like, well, "Then why are you advertising 25?" So I just, I was like, "Thanks, no thanks."
There is like T-Mobile, I think it is, something that's now 10 gig or something like that, or I don't know. Makes you wonder, but
I had Sprint when I first moved here, and so I called and said, "Hey, I don't have a signal." And they're like, "All right, well, we'll let you out of your," because back then I think I still had like a 2-year, and I had just gotten all of us new phones in Kentucky because the Sprint was really good in Kentucky. And then they called me up like 5 days later and said, "No, we have a 2G tower, so we can't let you out of it because you technically have access." And I'm like, "So I have to go out to the back 40 of my property where the 2G, because it hits the property, but it's like out by the pond." So anyway, that was my.
it's funny because
T-Mobile is now Sprint, but that was
Right,
my
'cause I feel
last
like-
interaction with them.
and anyone that has everyone has a cell phone, I guess, could pretty much state that. If you've been in the cell phone business as far as a consumer long enough, you notice it's a game. So years ago, I had U.S. Cellular. It was pretty good. I went to Verizon because it was so much better, and Verizon was at the top. And now I kind of feel like Verizon is not at the top anymore. People would have Sprint. And I'm like, dude, Sprint sucks. My brother switched to Sprint, and I'm like, dude, it's less money, but it's garbage. His phone never worked. and then T-Mobile and Sprint.
T maybe.
Yeah, well, exactly. Then they joined, and now, from what people usually say, like, that's better. So it's like a game they all play. Like, we have the 4 major companies or whatever, and we'll just kind of shuffle this around. So Verizon's not looking great right now. But
It's not, because you go out Corbin Road and basically Corbin Road through Croydon all the way up to almost the medical center.
You all
until you hit that
downtown
5G tower and
all downtown Newport up to the high school, everything, your phone doesn't work, like, the internet wise. If you're sitting there waiting for your kids, like, your phone doesn't work. It's like, oh, you get to a certain point, it won't. That's it. It's done. It never used to be that way, and so you'll watch, and then probably 5 years from now, something will happen, and then, whoa, Verizon's on top again, and these other ones are going to go down a little bit. And it's like a freaking game, and your phone bills are ridiculous. Like, I had my bill for a while, it was like $1,000 a month.
wow.
And I had like 6 phones because it was on a business plan, it made it cheaper. But mysteriously, I had a call every month because my plan would fluctuate so much. And it's like, why is this in here? That shouldn't be in there. Yeah, because I'm a business and you hope I'd miss it and then just pay it, because a lot of big companies just pay their bill. They don't even look at it. Crooked bastards.
It's all a scam.
It's all a scam, man.
You go back to Lethal Weapon 4, Chris Rock had a whole rant about cell phones. And that was in, what, 97? 98?
Yeah. Sometimes I think they work better then. Of course, they didn't have as much crap. It was, you made phone calls and you can text, which...
And then they ripped you off on text messages because it cost them absolutely almost. I mean, that's the best profit margin ever, was when they charged by the text message.
Yeah. It's crazy how things have changed, but I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday. Like, maybe, no, I didn't, because I saw it yesterday. FFA is doing a pancake breakfast this Sunday at the Old Courthouse Restaurant from 7:30 to 11. And then before I say that, yes, I think I'm wrong. 1 second, sorry.
You think you're wrong about the date?
Saturday.
Oh, Saturday.
No, I'm not wrong about the date. I'm wrong about the day. Saturday, March 11th. Jesus, I'm going to advertise this for you guys the wrong day, and you'll get nothing out of it. It's $10 a person, and it's, like I said, it benefits the Sugar River Valley FFA students, and FFA state convention cost is what they use it for. So tickets are available through the any FFA member or the tech center, and I'll check, because we'll talk about again this week, but I'm pretty sure you can buy tickets at the door. They usually don't turn people away, so but I'll double check. So if you're looking for breakfast on Saturday, check it out. And then again on Friday, they're doing the student and versus faculty basketball game at 6 o'clock is from what I can see. It might start at 6:30, but it says be there at 6. So somewhere in that period of time, it'll start, and it's $2 for dollar student. They'll have concessions, and yeah, go out. It'll be a good time, and I plan on going to that. I think we go to the pancake breakfast too. Sandra's like, "Oh, you can take Lydia and go," and I'm like, "Okay," because she don't like pancakes, and
I'm picky with my pancakes, but
but it's for
a good cause.
Good cause, exactly. Like, I mean, if you want like the best pancakes, go to Polly's Pancake House up in Sugar. What the hell is it? It's up in the White Mountains. Sugar Hill, New Hampshire, and those are good.
I don't.
That's a long ass wait though.
My granny made the best pancakes.
Yeah,
On her cast iron skillet, probably with
lots of butter,
a little butter or lard. She'd fry them up, and the edges would be all crispy. And I don't like thick buttermilk. I'm like not quite. I do love crepes, but thicker than a crepe, but not as thick as a buttermilk.
See, I love pancakes.
I love them too. Zeta's not a pancake fan.
I usually put chocolate chips in them, just gives it a little more. But a good Country Kitchen used to have such good pancakes, real fluffy.
I miss Country Kitchen. That was
I really miss Country Kitchen. I love the Mexican.
Yeah, I mean we eat.
But I mean, come on.
They have a dish that we get that we split, and we can eat it for basically 3 meals between the two of us.
What we should have done is listen, here's the thing, guys. Let's do breakfast here from 5 a.m. to 11, and country kitchen style, like the whole country kitchen stuff, and then you can do the Mexican food after. Like
That would be
a
a
win-win.
win-win.
Oh,
Oh, you get all the people dropping off their kids to go to the ski resort, so while
Yeah.
they're dropped off for the day, they can come there and eat,
yeah,
hang out for 3 or 4 hours, drinking coffee.
yeah.
It was always busy up until COVID.
COVID killed it. COVID legit killed that.
COVID
restaurant.
policies killed a lot of small businesses.
Yeah. The other thing too. So I see some people had asked was, so obviously we have voting on Tuesday. I'm actually going on Steve Smith's show on WCNL 7:20 on Monday. And I'll talk about the budget and reasons we needed to pass and whatever. Wanted to wait until that so it's fresh in people's mind, right? So that's going to be Tuesday.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you. From 8 to 7, yes, 8 to 7, at the Newport High School gym. I believe you can register to vote that day too, I'm pretty sure. Any questions like that, just reach out to the
Town clerk.
Town clerk, I believe, handles the voting for that as well, yes. But so the filing period for, so 2 selectmen, 3-year terms, treasurer, 3-year term, trustee to trust funds, 3-year term, and a town clerk, 3-year term, is March 22nd to March 22nd to Friday, March 31st. And on the 31st, you have until 5 o'clock. There's no, if you're there at 5:02, you missed it. So you'd have to go to, there's just a paper you fill out saying I'd like to run for any, whatever the position is. So yeah, this year there's 2 selectmen up, just like the school board. Every year there's 2, and the 3-year terms. I know Barry Connell's position's up. I think Herb Teller is the other one that's up this year. I heard Barry's running again. I haven't heard anyone else who's running. I'm not sure, or who plans on running, because obviously no one's filed yet. But so yeah, from the 22nd to the 31st of this month, you have to register for that if you would choose to get involved. I recommend anyone get involved. At least show up at meetings.
It's important.
It is very important. Yeah, it's super important. So, trying to think anything else locally we want to talk about before we go to national stuff. Yesterday they had there's a couple bills up. I sent the testimony thing in via the internet because it was another parents' right bill, and it looked like the opposition of it was like 900 or something to 2 something, as far as like people messaging in or whatever. It's funny, Democrats are so against parents' rights. I don't understand it. But there's a lot of different bills up. It's not like it's just one bill. Like there's 3 separate bills for different little things yesterday. So I know one of the bills passed the initial Senate thing 3-2. Ruth Ward, 2 other people voted, and then it would go to the full Senate floor. But you just go to the website and you see all these bills, and I'm telling you,
You went with me on Monday.
We
went
did.
down to the legislative office building. We didn't have to talk. I mean, you went because you're a good buddy, but also because you're my alternate on the CTE committee.
It's so funny because we go to you messaged me because I was like, hey, you want to do a show? And you're like, oh, I got a meeting in Concord. I'm like, oh, you want to go? And then you're like, you tell me, well, I'm kind of selfishly asking. And then I'm kind of thinking, do you not want me to go? And you're just like, I'm confused.
No, because,
I know, exactly. So it's so funny because we talk, on the car ride down, and we were there a little early, so we were just chilling out, and then we go in, and so Donna McGowan, the superintendent,
interim,
yeah, who else was there? Diane, who's the
budget analyst.
Yep, and Mr. Perry, yeah. So, and I walk in with you, and it's so funny.
As soon as Donna
saw me, oh, Steve, do you want to come alone? And it's funny because I almost thought about, razzing on you about it in front of him because, I know exactly, because he wanted me to go because he didn't want to go down alone, which is fine. But it was so funny because she so said that. And then
Totally
Steve
called
does
it.
his total defense thing, like, "Oh no, he's my alternate." And, I mean,
that's right.
and it's just so funny because it's like Donna hasn't been around very long, but she's freaking like totally knows Steve and me and like the whole thing. She just knows the setup. So, but no, I appreciate you inviting me because I like going down for stuff like that anyways because it's interesting.
It was very interesting. I mean, they were like, it wasn't like when we went a year or so ago
Yeah,
to some
it
of
was
the
very
committee
different.
meetings. It was, 30 minutes that
And it was legit 30
it was
minutes.
legit 30.
They didn't-
They
it was-
didn't play around. It was, you got 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Go.
Yeah. So basically, just and there's just three things that the head of the education department just was mentioning budget stuff, and from the consensus I could see in the room was that they luckily Newport was already in the governor's budget. Winnisquam wasn't, however.
They had the town vote coming up.
The town vote was coming up, and it seemed like the committee was all on board for it. There was probably, what, was it 10? Maybe a few more? 10, 12, something like that.
It was quite a few.
There was a few. It was a good size
It was a good
table setup. and-
U-shaped setup
yeah.
going on.
It was just cool to see the setup, how they do it, and just the procedure, and it was cool. I mean, I have some opinions.
Well, the good news from that, though, is that, because of the inflated cost, it looks like if the budget passes, that we're getting the extra money to make up for that.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. Just like explain to everyone. The reason we were there to start was because we asked the department head for additional at 1.5.
Yeah.
Because that's the shortfall from the inflation from when we voted
2 years
and
ago when
yes.
we had the site analyst, and then last year when we voted,
Yes.
and now prices
And-
have just gone up.
We said as a board, neither one of us were on the board at the time. No, because it passed when you were elected. So, but no one was going to come to the taxpayers in Newport and say we need more money. It wasn't happening. That was the line in the sand. It wasn't going to happen. So it's either we have to get donations from someone, which is a challenge,
And we're working on that.
and we're
There's currently
still working on that.
a committee out there going around to businesses
Yes.
asking for equipment donations. There's
Right. But that shortfall of that 1.5 million, we felt like, well, you want us to upgrade this so much. It's 80% funded by the state anyways.
on a 30-year cycle, like
Yes.
you had mentioned yesterday.
Yes. So this isn't at fault of the taxpayers of Newport
Right.
that Joe Biden's running our country into the ground and the inflation's through the roof. And I would say, in a positive note, like they seem very open to that and understanding of that, and that they
And supportive, because
Yeah.
I think it seemed like they all understood the value of the CTE,
Yes.
not just in Newport, but for the entire state.
yeah, both sides of the aisle,
Yeah, both
very
sides. It was-
bipartisan.
yeah.
Our rep for this area on that is a Democrat, and Donna said has been fantastic and is very supportive of it, and which is how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what we
100%.
always say. It shouldn't come down to like
No.
a party thing. It should come down to what's best for
Exactly.
your town, the state, and the country.
Exactly. And so I will 100% say that, yes, very impressed by that. I felt the consensus in the room was very strong. Like, yeah,
Yeah, like there wasn't it was nice.
there was no opposition.
No.
A few questions asked, but they're basic things. And they seem to understand the value of it and everything. So, and I've said it a million times, like, I think what makes Newport as good as it is, even with its downfalls, is the CTE. If you didn't have the CTE, I think we would be in a very serious situation. But because of the CTE, I feel like we're light years ahead of where we would be. Because the programs, a lot of kids in this area learn better with different studies of like, okay, I'm in the forestry, and I know when I was in school, like I did automotive, but I did a lot with NCT when I was in school. That's what got me through high school. If it wasn't for these programs, I don't know where would that have gone? Would I finish school, right? So we're very blessed to have it, and it sounds like it's going to happen. And I mean, construction is supposed to be starting very soon.
Very
actually.
soon, yeah. Just in phases.
It's in phases, yes. And sounds like we have our land thing, or we're working on figuring that out, but we should be good there because the way the ice skating rink was a grant as far as basically that whole area. I thought, I was like, wait, just this little ice skating rink of a 3/4 acre piece, but everything from like that parking lot down was granted to the town at one point for athletic fields, and so we need to take the spot where the ice rink is to put the new ag building, and we cannot legally do that unless we adequate or find another piece equal size for recreation, so that or if you're losing this, you need to add it somewhere else, which I'm all in support of. I think it's great, and luckily we can move it, so it's not like, oh no, can't do nothing here. We need to find a piece that would have recreation or whatever on. So any of those hiccups, I think we're good. So yeah. Only thing now I want to just talk about is we talked a little bit about yesterday, and then I saw more obviously as the night went on, and this is the January 6th video stuff. And what's funny is, so once McCarthy becomes Speaker of the House, he decided to release
I think that was part of the whole holdout for the 20 or however
the
many
20 I think it was,
that was part of the conditions.
Yes, release all the video that you've secretly held, and there's like 45,000 hours of it or something. Like, it's crazy. It's huge. So he went to Tucker Carlson's show, I guess, and Fox and whatever, and they went into the Capitol, whatever, and actually I think they sat down with the chief too, and they went through all this.
It was one of the lieutenants.
Yeah,
on
they went through all the video, and a lot of it is just useless, nothing. It's not worth anything, because there's probably 1,000 cameras. So,
right.
But so he comes out Monday night with his show, and basically shows the stuff that we haven't seen, which is QAnon shaman, whatever, walking around the Capitol with his flag, and
being escorted by
the
two police officers, and then at one point he was surrounded.
Yeah, it was 9 of them around him.
Yeah, like 8 or 9.
So basically, the video shows them escort him around the building. He clearly is there. He is not there as in he didn't, invade or insurrect the building. The Capitol Police gave him a tour.
Basically, that's what it looks like. Like, you can turn the volume down, like if you got something against Tucker Carlson.
Right.
Just turn the volume down and watch the video. It speaks for itself.
And I'll say that I literally watched this the day it happened, and I'm not usually someone that watches any of this stuff, but I watched this on C-SPAN live, and they started to go in, and then as things went on, like the news was trying to push this insurrection before it even happened. Because one guy's like, "What are you talking about? We're just down here peacefully protesting. We're here for the rally or whatever," and then he immediately shut that guy off because he didn't say what he wanted. Like, I watched this live with my own eyes.
I think my brother saw that same clip because he was like, man, It was like they were trying to.
And I watched them go into the building. They didn't break to get in the building. They opened the doors. They went into the building. I watched them walk down the center aisle with the red velvet, stay in this area. And they just walked around. And yes, there are some videos of people breaking some windows and whatever.
They're pushing down barriers, but it also looks like there's guys with earpieces in.
Right. So the feds are probably the ones doing most of that.
Yeah, inciting it or whatever.
Exactly. So if anyone was inciting an insurrection, it was the feds, which they still won't tell you how many were there or any of that stuff. So
because you can watch them interview and ask specifically like about Ray Epps.
Yeah, and Ray Epps can't speak on it because of some secret blah 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 blah. So,
but like they don't deny it. That he's a Fed,
right.
But you know what I mean? It's
he's never been charged. Even those video of him trying to rile up the crowd and cause an insurrection.
Like he's literally like, "Come on!" And people are like, "Dude, you're a Fed, obviously." Like,
they start cheering Fed.
Yeah,
yeah. So, and there's also a video of a person going up to the police out there saying, "Why aren't you doing your job? Why aren't you getting people down here?" Like, because the whole thing was pre-planned, 100%, and
that's what it appears to be.
So Schumer's going all ballistic, and you need to get Tucker Carlson off the air.
Openly calling for censorship in this country.
Yes. And then Mitch McConnell, who's another biggest swamp creature down there.
Yeah, it's a uniparty.
Is like, oh, yeah, you can't play this. And And he literally says, you can't play this because it depicts something other than what we've been saying. And he says it. Watch the video for yourself.
Yeah, don't take our word for
No.
it. Go and
Watch the
watch
damn
it.
video.
Yeah.
And you can't say, and I mean, I said this from day one. These guys, they're in the House floor, sitting in like the speakers, like none of this would have happened. And then there's now a story coming out that they called for one of the lieutenants or someone up the ladder called for, and the only people that get supposed to do it was either like the Speaker of the House or
When he was
Schumer.
interviewing him, right? You're talking about
Yes.
the interview with the lieutenant?
Yes. And he's like, I wanted to evacuate the staff, and they never gave me an answer. And he said, I just decided to do it anyways because this was happening.
Yeah, I watched that interview.
So they try to paint a picture for how long now that this horrible insurrection and all this, which we know
over
that's
2 years.
BS. The insurrection was actually in Afghanistan when we pulled out, and we just gave the Taliban, Afghanistan. But they try to paint a picture.
Like within 24 hours, they took it.
They've
over.
also laid in audio into these clips to make it sound like it's a violent riot. None of that's there. They added it, and and I think a lot of people in this country probably have watched many clips of this supposed insurrection. And yeah, there was some windows that got broken. There was a few things, but the only person that died there because it was like this deadly insurrection was Ashley Babbitt, who was murdered there, unarmed, shot by a Capitol police officer, who
Still hasn't been charged.
still hasn't been charged. They declined the charge. She was a ex-Navy
Air Force.
Air Force for what, like 16 years, 14 years, something like that.
I think it was Air Force.
It was either Air Force or Navy. I know it was one of those two. Yeah, and so now they're all in a tizzy and they're all pissed off because, oh my God, you better hurry up and shut this down because if too many people watch this video and see the truth that we're all a bunch of liars in Washington and we're trying to paint a
And
picture.
propagandizing against us.
Yes.
Because people, even still with that video out, they won't believe it because they've bought into it for so long.
Yeah.
That's why you got to ask yourself questions. That's why, I don't act like I know everything. Because like when we talk, it's the people who are like talking to you as if you're a moron, right? Like I understand why people would believe it's an insurrection because of the way it's been depicted for the last 2 years.
Yeah, they cut the video to make it look that way.
Yeah. That's what it appears after watching I kind of art, like you said, I'd seen, and if you want to look and find things, you can. It goes back to just, if you want to know the truth, go beyond mainstream media. It is bought and paid for by the advertisers.
Yeah, and the guy that got the shaman or whatever the hell, he's doing.
Yeah, 4 years.
4
There's
years.
people who do less time for manslaughter or murder.
Yeah. So, and then you still have political prisoners that haven't been tried. That are still in jail. Like this whole thing is disgusting, and it's all an attempt just to prevent Trump from running for president again. That's all it is.
Well, it's to prevent Trump, and it's also to, don't protest.
Right. Don't do anything you're legally allowed to do, and you're protected under your First Amendment, your Second Amendment, all your amendments. You're legally allowed to have these things, do these things, and just like Tucker Carlson, just like we are, we're protected on our First Amendment. We can do the show. We can say anything we want as long as it's not, inciting violence. Right? We can't, say whatever. But no, that's be like someone saying, okay, we need to shut the show down because I don't like what they're saying. That's exactly happening on the national stage because it's not pushing their BS agenda lies to the American people for 2 years and the millions they spent.
It's sad as somebody who spent my life dedicated.
Yeah. And then you have people that are now
To
like
this country.
This gentleman that's got 4 years in prison, who's been in jail for 2 years now. Do you think this video was given to his lawyer to present at his trial? Because that's a crime too. Because you can't withhold. Yeah, you can't withhold evidence. So they have
Exculpatory evidence.
Yes. So who's the bigger crook in this? There's a few people that decide to go into the Capitol. Should they have not gone in? No. The Capitol, I believe, was closed that day because normally you can go into the Capitol, which I still believe it's closed because they don't.
It looks like it's all fenced in, which is odd how they have a fence around the Capitol but not on our border.
It's amazing.
You're a Republican. No, like that's I am an American that wants to protect our culture. Like we have to have a single culture that unites us. If we don't, then we're not a country. Like, you know what I mean? That's why
No sovereignty without borders. It's
no
common
sovereignty
sense.
without borders. You got to know your history, and destroying, history is not. It's not good for anybody. You're bound to repeat your past mistakes if you don't remember them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, history is written by the winners, so who even knows the whole truth at this point in time? If they're willing now, if they're doing it now, why haven't they done it in the past? And I always go back to if the boomers, the baby boomers would have called out the BS whenever they locked down the JFK report for 60 years. Like, what else do you need to know other than, like, the government's complicit in some form or fashion? They're hiding something from you. It's not right. They're hiding stuff from us all the time, trying to lock down the COVID stuff for 70 years from Moderna or whatever. Like, that to me, common sense says they're hiding something that they don't want us to know. Obviously. Like, so if they're hiding it, then why hide it? Like, let the truth be shown.
Yeah, if it's so good, it's so life-saving, everything else, why would you want to hide it all?
Right. You want to share it and build confidence with the people that you're demanding take this experiment.
I think I lost all faith in Washington before this, but when Eric Swalwell was proven to be having an affair with a Chinese spy, Fang Fang, and he's on the House Intelligence Committee, and they didn't remove him. They didn't
remove Schiff when he blatantly lied on the floor.
Yeah.
So they can lie to us, but we can't lie to them.
Yes.
This is not the way the government was intended back in the day. The way it was intended is don't mess around with the people because the people are in charge. You serve at the pleasure of us. We don't exist at the pleasure of you.
Can you imagine going back to like Eisenhower's days or back in that era and finding out that someone on the House Intelligence Committee is having an affair with a spy? They probably would have hung the person for treason.
I don't know if they would have hung him back because even Eisenhower warned of the military-industrial complex.
Right.
Which,
but if you go back 50 years, you think they would have just been like, yeah, that's fine.
Well, yeah, I mean, they did. Didn't they hang the two that sold the nuclear secrets? I think they hung them, or firing squad, I think.
So I guess the screw-up was I guess lucky for him is if he was sleeping with a Chinese spy, it was fine. But had it been a Russian, spy, it probably would have been like, hang him.
Well, Dianne Feinstein had a Chinese spy as a driver for 20 years.
She's
allegedly. I mean, I don't know if it's been. I like. There's so much that like you can find, and then they spin everything up so that like, where's Epstein's client list? Who were they trafficking young girls to? Who's getting punished for the millions of dollars spent on the Mueller investigation that found absolutely nothing? Like, who's held accountable for anything anymore? This is the problem with America is there's no one held to account at the top. The justice system appears to be two-sided on the national level, and you know what I mean? Like, you can find all kinds of anecdotal evidence of somebody using hate speech and getting more time than people committing murders, which I don't believe in hate speech. I believe that you can't incite violence. Everything else is like, good luck with whatever you think because your friends will be probably fewer and fewer. Like, you know what I mean? If you're going to say something about a group of people, you can. But like, should you?
That's what
like, you know what I mean? Like that, you pay the consequences for your words.
Right. And you can say anything under the First Amendment, anything. You can be the biggest.
No, they're passing laws where you can't criticize certain.
I know, which is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's not okay because you have a right in this country to say anything you want. Okay,
yeah,
you can say You can be the biggest racist there is. That's fine. You have a right to do that. And I have a right to be like, hey, you're
A racist. I
a
don't want to be
racist,
around
you're
you.
a piece of shit. I don't want nothing to do with you.
Exactly.
And you'll be a recluse from society and whatever. But you have a right to do that. You have a right to do it.
Yeah.
You have a right to protest military funerals. I'd like to freaking go up there and, run your ass over with a truck. But which
you
I
don't.
can't because it
Right.
break the law.
Yeah, exactly.
But you have a right to do it. You have a right to be a jackass in this country.
Now, and most military service members, retired or active, if they're honest and they've thought about it, they like when people kneel for the thing, like it just lets me know that I don't want to be friends with you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
You
I'm not
stand
going to
out.
fight you
The
for
real
it or anything
jackasses
else.
in the room just stood out and like, oh,
Yeah, like, yeah, there's the guys that I'm not going to be having a glass of lemonade with ever in my life. You know what I mean? Like I don't, like I'm like, man.
Nah,
but
like-
but you know what I'm like? That's their right.
yeah.
I'm not going to say you have to stand. Like,
And then what happens when you do something like that? When you're a jackass POS and you protest military funerals and you're a church, that's when biker groups show up to support those.
Right.
And most people in this country know that you don't F with bikers because they don't care about laws and they don't care about any of that. And they have more respect and dignity than a lot of people.
Yeah. I don't know many bikers I know.
I know a lot of bikers, but
I know a couple.
yeah. So crazy shit, man. So anyways, watch this video before they
Yeah, just watch it
censor
and make your own conclusions.
Just think about it.
Yeah,
the
like-
dude's walking around with escorts. If me and you took a run at the White House and said,
If me and you would have
hey,
taken a run somewhere the other day at the legislative building, if we'd have walked somewhere, somebody
Yeah.
would have stopped us and said
right.
no.
If we just walked into Sunu's office and just like sat at his desk and like, do
Yeah,
you think
like
we
would never, like they would stop us.
would they have given us a tour?
Would they have escorted us to defuse the
handcuffed us.
situation, or would they? Hopefully, they would have taken us to the ground and been like, "You're not authorized back here, Bubba."
They would ask us to leave
Yeah,
and said, you can't be here. And then if we
Yeah, it
said,
would've escalated.
F you, we don't care, we're going to go anyways, then it would call for backup. They would probably tase both our asses
and rightfully so.
drag us out and then
Yeah,
charge
I
us.
have no issue with that.
Exactly.
Like that's the way it should be. Sorry, I almost coughed.
I hear there. I have no problem with laws and order. And
Yeah.
it's like even just being in. It's pretty cool because just being in the state capitol and then the legislative building behind there, because anyone can go there. It's open. It's open to the public. None of
That's
it's
the
secret.
beautiful thing about our country.
And it's awesome to see the history of it. I love it. I love old buildings like that.
It's all old paintings and learn something.
You just, for me at least, like kind of have just a sense of respect being in the building, right?
Yeah,
For what it is.
yeah.
And everybody should have that. Even if you're there and you're pissed off, and I've been there pissed off many times about some bill coming up, and then you express yourself. But you express yourself when you're allowed to speak, and like that's how
Yeah.
you do it in a civilized manner.
Open debate and discussion.
Exactly. And yeah, there's some people at that January 6th
That
that
deserve-
broke the law
yeah.
and deserve to be arrested, and then I don't know what the crime should be for certain things.
Yeah,
but,
I don't
man,
know
if
if
you're
it's-
smashing windows and shit, they should. I
Yeah.
don't care, man. Give them a couple years in jail. Like that's not okay.
That's our tax dollars. And things.
Yeah. So, but I think if you figure out exactly who everybody is, I think you're gonna find out that.
Well, there's a
probably
lot of
offense.
implants
Yeah.
and we're inciting it. And
Yeah. Because there was a couple million people, I believe, there in that
Yeah.
vicinity, and there was a lot of people that went into the building, and they didn't charge them all because like a lot of them just walked in and
I think it was about
super-
1,000, right? Like,
Yeah.
that they've been
They're
arrested.
super respectful, and like one guy like pushed something over, and the other guy like picked it up, and like because like us, they're like, well, no, like it's not what you do, but
Yeah.
they're trying to send you a picture like, oh my god, and for Biden to say this is the worst thing since the Civil War, are you fucking kidding me? Do you not
That's
remember Pearl
hyperbole.
Harbor? Yeah, you think? I mean, he should remember because he's been here since the Civil War, but what a slap in the face, and just
Well, it's disrespectful to.
yeah.
And I would look up the Smith-Mundt Act back in, was it 2000, in the National Defense Authorization Act of 2013. The Smith-Mundt was amended to where now we, as American citizens, can be subject to propaganda. Did you know that?
That don't surprise me.
I might be wrong, but I don't think that I am.
I guess the one you showed me, it was
Yeah.
like a TV thing, right? Like, yeah. Because before that, you can't. The media can't be used as propaganda, or the government can't use propaganda
Against its own
against
citizens.
its own citizens. But in 2013, when they changed it,
Yeah, and it wasn't. They didn't. It's not underneath an act. It's underneath the NDAA.
right? So because in other countries, like Middle Eastern countries and
Well, it's
China,
because
whatever.
our State Department goes and runs propaganda all around the world.
Yes, and how they do it, they use the media.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what they do here. Now, you see it every day. It's propaganda. They're not giving you the story. They're not saying, here's the story as a whole. It's, here's my one-sided liberal push on it, and here's my one-sided conservative push on it, and they create the division. And a lot of people, I don't get it, I guess.
It's like
Pay
I
more
always try to
attention
figure
the
out, is there
other
like a
side.
spell over people? Like, because I can see it for what it is. Like, I don't watch mainstream media. Like, now, granted, I watched YouTube clips of Tucker's show the last couple of days.
Right. But that's it. I don't watch
Yeah.
any of the news.
I
My
go,
opinion,
I go
Fox
to,
News
I-
is as bad as the rest of them.
Yeah, I go to Substack and look for journalists that are out on their own because they wouldn't toe the propaganda line or the advertisers' wishes, because the advertisers have a say in what you're not going to, like, we're not going to sit down here and talk bad about Doug Ring.
Right. Right. You wouldn't. And so if your advertiser's paying you huge money, which thank you, Doug, for sponsoring the show, but Doug doesn't pay us huge
No,
money.
he doesn't.
But these corporate businesses like Fox and stuff, like they have big $1 million sponsors or huge money. So if they said, you're doing this, we don't like it, we're going to take our $100 million and spend it elsewhere, most likely they're going to say,
We can make that change.
we'll make that change, even though you might not agree with it. Now, me and you,
Yeah, like if
Wouldn't.
something happened and
no.
Even
Even if,
we'd be like, hey, Doug, we're not going to take your $20.
no, if our sponsor or sponsors or whatever, if we had a sponsor, it's like, yeah, we're getting $10,000 a month from this sponsor, and here's the thing, guys, I don't want you to say anything negative about the government anymore. I want you to just I want you to do the opposite. I want you to push how great the government is and all that. And then look at him, you take you 10 grand, shove it up your ass.
Yeah,
I don't care,
exactly.
but I can make the decision.
That's a better analogy. Thank you.
Right. So, but they don't do that at that high level with a lot of it. Some of them, I'm sure they do. I'm sure all these companies out there, even CNN, these guys have got sponsors for, and they're like, yeah, I don't think so. We're not doing that. But it's gotten to the point where, corporate America runs everything. Everything. BlackRock.
Well,
is
it's fascism, which, when the companies start acting on behalf, so the government, technically is not supposed to do certain things because of the Constitution, but PayPal can limit how you speak, because if you say something PayPal doesn't like, they're going to take and charge you $2,500 out of your account. Do you know that? That's why I don't use PayPal. I got rid of my PayPal account.
Well, I know that starting, is it this month or next month? Discover is going to start reporting if you buy firearms using their card.
To who? Yeah, but that's
Right.
that's how they get around it.
Yes.
They're acting on behalf of the government.
Yes.
Under the guise of, no, we're doing this for safety and whatever else,
Yes.
but really it's on behalf of the government so that they can track down.
And you at Discover have no goddamn right to tell me what I can and can not buy with my money that you may be lending it to me, but at a huge interest. It's not free. It's not like, hey, I'll lend you this money, but you can't do this with it. And no interest back. We're just going to give it to you as a loan. Now, if you're just giving it to me as a loan, like here's $5,000, Steve, but don't go buy gardening supplies with it, okay? And then you do, okay, that's an issue, right?
Right.
But here's $5,000, Steve, and you're going to pay me back $7,000 or $8,000 because the interest is so high, and I'm going to be like, you can't go buy this with it. You're going to be like,
Well,
F
I'm
you.
not going to take
It's
that loan.
my money, I'm paying interest
Which
on.
is why I don't have PayPal anymore, because I do not support fascism
Right.
or corporatism,
Communism,
whatever they're
yeah.
going to call it. It's fascism in the old school sense.
So,
It's not nationalized, so to speak, but it is
It's funny in a way.
in the sense that they work on behalf of them. Or,
It's funny in a way though, because like Discover, for instance, So I've been in business for 16 years, and well, actually, I guess my business itself I had for say 14. I was in the business for like 17, but so we take credit cards, right? For a long time, we never took Discover anyways because they like charged us more to use that card for as a fee for me that I'd have to pay because there's fees for every one of the cards you run. But
Excuse me.
But to me, it was amazing because the amount of people that actually had Discover card was extremely low. Like it was very low. So, American Express, more business. It's heavily used, but it's in the scheme of my normal customers, me, you, normal citizens. It was Visa and MasterCard. Those are the two. Those are the two main ones. So for Discover to go out and do it, it's odd because you don't even have the amount of subscribers that the other two have, and this is going to piss off a lot of people. So it's a stupid move, I think, in a way, unless they're banking on, well, maybe more people will come to us because we have these standards. But
Well, no, I'm sure like they'll end up like if people. So people obviously we speak with our pocketbooks.
right.
And while we're on this conversation, I would suggest to try to use cash as often as you can with small
Yeah.
businesses so that they don't have to pay all those fees.
Yeah, a lot of them now.
Because $50 is $50 when you're paying with cash.
Yes.
$50 is $44, right, for you on the after you pay all the fees and everything.
Now it's got to the point where most businesses are charging a 3.5% surcharge because that's what they have to pay
To make up for the
Yes, and for me, if you had a $500 call for service call, and it wasn't too bad. It adds up at the end of the year for sure. But if I have a customer that's doing a $5,000 dig, and now they want to use a credit card, well, that's going to cost me, $350, or it's going to cost me $175. But plus or minus, because the fees sometimes would be different. But that's a convenience for you, not me. So I would get to the point where we charge you that fee that the credit card company is going to charge me, it's passed on to you because it's convenient for you to use your credit card. It's not convenient for me because I have to wait for my money, whatever. Now, if you want to give me cash or a check, that's perfectly fine because then that's boom, you get your money. There's no fees involved. So we had to start to do that, especially with the bigger things. And then, I told my brothers, you start doing that with anything over like $500. And most companies do that now. If you go to convenience stores and stuff, a lot of them have a minimum charge. Like you can't use your card at all unless it's like $5 or more, because the percentage of profit they're making, they're losing it because of the credit card company.
No, yeah. So, as a
Use cash.
Yeah, I am going to do my best to use cash locally now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
and I get it. Like some people use a credit card
because it's convenient, it's easy.
Yes, but a majority of the people out there, I feel like
I use a debit card. To be fair, I don't
use a debit card, right? So your debit card's connected to your bank.
It's a MasterCard.
It's your money.
Right.
They just put it on a piece of plastic for you.
Right.
Now, if you're using a credit card, for whatever the reason, it's easier for you. You're short on money this week, so you're charging it.
Right.
Everyone has a different reason to use a credit card. Okay, I get that. But if you have cash, so instead of taking the cash out of my pocket, I'm going to put it on my card. It's a disadvantage to you because that's another push for them, the cashless society, which they'll.
Right, which this is going to be a good segue because I told you I didn't want to talk about what's going on in Australia.
Yeah. So if you don't start using cash more, you're just showing everyone like, oh yeah, they'll use card. Well, here's the thing. You work all week and you get a card, and here's your money. It's on a card. It's not tangible if, say, the government shuts it off or you have computers crash or any of those things, right? It sounds all crazy, but they do this in China all the time. Like you can't travel because you said something you shouldn't against the government. And this happens every day in China. It's real.
And it's going to start happening in Australia because
Yes.
they're going to a digital ID. And last night I had to stop. It was a news clip from Australia. And I couldn't watch the propaganda of how they're trying to sell the convenience of it. And yes, I'm sure it is convenient. But what are you giving up for convenience? It's like, what do you like? if you give up your freedom for safety, you don't have freedom anymore. You're now a slave to whatever is deemed unsafe. And so I would just, if it's happening in Australia, that's usually the testing ground for the rest of the world, the Western world.
In 1996, they gave up all their guns. And in 2000, 2001, and 2, many of them were putting in concentration camps, COVID camps.
2021.
2021, yeah. So, anything happen in there? You're right, 100%.
It's like a testing ground. And so they're going to a digital ID. And I'm telling you, I got like 40 seconds in, and the propaganda with the undulating voice and how awesome and cool it is. Like, do not give up your biometric data. The government's already tracking us with our GPS and our cell phone. All you had to do is watch the Alex Murdaugh trial, and they can tell you when he slowed down, you know, thereabouts, about where they found a cell phone, you know. So, like, the technology is out there to where they already know everything that they're going to know about us, right? So on one hand, you might say, well, if they already have all this, why not just go to a digital ID? Because then they're going to go to a central digital coin, and then the central digital banking coins, or it's CBDs, I don't know, there's an acronym for it, but it's basically digital money. It's not cryptocurrency. There's a difference.
No.
It's digital money that's tied to your cell phone. And so all your IDs get uploaded into a program, and now your cell phone, you're giving them permission to really track you. Like, they're tracking us now. All you got to do is talk about something, and then your YouTube feed will pop up with, you know, a recommendation based off of what you were talking about, generally speaking, within a week or less, sometimes within hours. So they already are listening, even if you have stuff turned off. I feel like, because I'm Mr. Weirdo, right? I try to turn off any and everything, and I still get recommendations that only could be given because something was listening to what I was saying in my house. And I don't have Alexa. I don't have any of that garbage. And if we keep giving up more and more, like they're trying to do now in Australia, you're not going to have the freedoms that we have. Because the government can say, oh, your carbon this week output was too much, so you don't get to travel to Texas, or you don't get to go to New York. Your car, they might shut your car down, right? If you're in an electric car that's connected to the internet, just like Nikki's Jeep Cherokee, that since 2008 or 7, there's instances of where people can hack into it.
Yeah.
And there's cameras now facing like every seat in that vehicle. Like, who needs to turn on a camera to look and see what's going on in the second seat?
Right. The only defense I'm going to say that is if you have a young child.
I did it just fine without a camera looking at my young child.
Yeah, and they make little cameras and stuff. Like, I just thought it was creepy because you were like spying on me when I was in the back of the car.
Yeah. I keep my eye on now that I have that. But
I'm just glad you told me that it was part of the factory stuff, because I didn't know if you were starting some like fake taxi, you know.
Oh, the cash cab?
Well, no, it wasn't cash cab, but some sort of, you know, weird thing. All these cameras in the back of your Cherokee. But here's another thing. Like, you know, people go, oh, Steve, you know, that's crazy. It's crazy. Okay, so here's this thing I've been hearing.
It's a slippery slope, but it's
not, though, because
it's already happening in China.
Exactly. And if you look at it this way, here's the thing that gets me. So LifeLock came out a few years back, right? Because people's identity gets stolen all the freaking time. So if it's digital, it's going to be even easier to steal, okay? Like, hackers hack stuff all the time that you wouldn't think they could do, but they do it.
Would you have thought that they were hacking cars 15 years ago?
No.
They could shut your brakes down 15 years ago.
Right. There's a new thing out there now that, similar to LifeLock, but it's like Title Lock, where people can steal your property, basically just like signing the deed like it was you, and then all of a sudden they own your property and you have no, like, you're screwed. So there's like this insurance thing, and I'm like, what are you like talking about? Because it seems far-fetched. It's real. It's a business now that to protect yourself. So you have all these businesses out there for these things, like stealing your identity and stealing your property. And you think that all of a sudden, if we just keep going, let's just go full bore into this, like, oh, digital ID, well, digital, everything will be on your phone.
Everything will be tracked. If you're not doing anything wrong to them, why do you care?
Well, it's funny because then
I do care.
You go get a new phone and you can't remember any of your freaking passwords or anything, and now you don't even exist as a person.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you don't like going to the DMV because it's a clusterfuck. You go there and it's like, oh yeah, here to get my license, and it's
never easy.
It's horrible, man. Like, you want to just step that up to a bigger scale where the government and bureaucrats, like, they'll do everything this way. Like,
Hey, I have a relative that was told when they went in for their license that their birth certificate's invalid by someone who barely spoke English. Basically, even though this person served in the military, all kinds of, you know what I'm saying? Like, the audacity. And, oh, by the way, like, since when do we reject birth certificates that are original with the stamped seal on it? It was because there was a word that they didn't
read.
agree. Well, I don't know if they couldn't read or disagree. But the ridiculousness of society. The point being is don't give up your freedoms. Don't let people track you. Don't scan your retina, your fingerprint to start paying for things. Like, like if you were okay with that, then that's cool. But I'm just saying it's a slippery slope that ends with us basically being cattle kept in our house until those in charge, and it's always bureaucrats, right? It's not necessarily the best, smartest person that's going to be in charge of reviewing your data, even if it's an algorithm. I mean, you can go into Chat GPT and see that even with AI and algorithms, you can control it and make it slanted a certain way.
yeah, and if you haven't noticed, bureaucrats now are put in the positions based off of not qualifications, but based off of, you know, the clothes
Diversity,
they
equity,
wear, the color
inclusion.
of their skin, you know, those
Yeah,
things.
it's not about the character or the performance.
You know,
It's not true in everything, but it's going to that way.
going that way right now. FFA director can't FAA.
Couldn't answer any. They asked him seven
questions. Couldn't answer any
a
of them.
single one of them.
And he
One of them, he was like trying to start talking about high blood pressure. Did you see that? And the guy was like, "Yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about altitudes, weights on the plane." Anyway, that's who they're nominating to be in charge of the skies. Can't answer 7 aviation questions that you would think someone in charge of the FAA would be able to answer.
And if you don't give him the job, you'll be racist.
Yeah. Propaganda runs deep in this country.
Damn. So I had this on the list of stuff to talk about yesterday, but we didn't get to it, so we'll talk about it today. So did you see in Atlanta that Antifa
I did. I watched that.
firebombing some like construction equipment? It's a safety services new facility, whatever. I think we've kind of said this before, anyways. Like, Antifa is a terrorist group. Of course, it depends who you ask. You know, if you ask liberal Democrats that have, you know, endorsed cities burning to the ground by Antifa, then no, they're just mostly peaceful protests that burnt cities down. But so, anyways, to my surprise,
took over city blocks.
yeah, you know, autonomous zones, and so 23 people are arrested and actually charged on domestic terrorist charges, which surprised me right there. Now, we'll see what goes from there. But one of them was a Southern Poverty Law Center attorney who, let me go to the story so I make sure I don't get everything wrong here. But he was released on $5,000 bail last night. So let's think about you. Charged with domestic terrorism.
This is the same guy that's going to tell everybody that you and I are domestic terrorists just for
Yes.
mentioning that
Correct.
the FAA guy who's up nominated couldn't answer 7 questions, and I don't think I want that guy in charge of my airplane or the airspace while I'm flying in it, you know?
Yeah. So
I mean, there are some jobs where you don't have to be an expert in the field, right? Like, you can manage. But something like that, you'd think you'd need to be an expert. Like the guy who's doing it now, he was a pilot for 30 years.
right.
Who's black, by the way. So I'm not saying I have an issue with the nominee because he's black. I'm saying I have an issue because he doesn't know anything about.
I don't give a shit what color you are. It's not going to make you do
No,
your
but
job better.
I know. Well, that's what I'm saying.
No, I know
because
you are.
People will like, ooh. No, don't read into what I'm saying. What I'm saying is he's unqualified. Could be a white guy there that And this guy runs an airport as we speak.
Yeah, you're right. That's the scary thing.
Denver Airport.
And they don't want him to run at all. But anyways, this I can't find on this story, but
The Southern Poverty Law Center is
hired often by like the FBI or something.
no. So they put out a list of, basically parents who go to school boards are terrorists if they don't want their kids getting taught things that they don't want their kids taught. Like that's the kind of stuff the Southern Poverty Law Center does. Like they're very biased, and I mean they'll label a Christian organization as a hate group for whatever that means.
And only 2 of the people that were arrested are actually from Georgia. All the rest from different states.
Well, there's always been a statement like, where's Antifa been for the last couple of years? Is because they're not getting paid. Like they're all paid. They get
They're paid under Trump to cause issues. Biden's in office, and so Soros doesn't want to pay him, and so they haven't. And then I don't know what happened on this one.
Well, there must be what's going on in Atlanta.
I don't know.
Just trying to distract from something.
Maybe, but then to be charged with terrorism, and then let on a $5,000 bail. At $5,000?
So what does that mean? They got a what?
10%.
$500.
Yeah. I mean, unless it was cash, but still $5,000.
So they were firebombing. They're already out back on the street, and like you said earlier, there's still people who walk through the Capitol. And I'm not saying to go back to that. We're not, and I think you said it, but I'll say it again. We're not saying that there wasn't any violence on January 6th.
No, there was some.
Yeah. What we're saying
So prosecute those few people. But
is
the
that
whole
there are
picture
people who are
posts is-
being held without bail, without due process.
Yeah.
This should concern everybody. It doesn't matter what political party you are.
Yeah.
Like if I watched that video and it was like reversed, I'd be like, holy cow, man, I've been lied to. This is an affront to everything that it is to be an American. You have been lying to us. You put on a show trial for 2 years, and it's not as bad as you said. You're using hyperbole that it was the greatest attack, even though the Capitol was bombed in the 80s and the people who participated in that are actually working in government now.
Mm-hmm. Funny, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a true story. You can look it up.
Yeah. So, and you spent all these millions on this fake-ass committee that wasn't legal anyways because...
All of our tax dollars are getting wasted.
Wasted. We can't have a freaking road to drive on that's smooth, but we can...
But we can get some pork and get a community center.
Flint, Michigan can't have clean water. East Palestine freaking...
Can't get its...
Can't have anything cleaned up out there. And then there was another train crash in Ohio, and the conductor died. It hit a dump truck. Same company. What the hell's going on?
Well, some people will say, well, Tim, there's over 1,000, right? Because that was Buttigieg's thing, which, yeah, that's true. Food processing plants catch on fire. Silos explode because that dust is volatile. I mean, things happen. But at this day and age, when they're trying to keep us down, it feels like.
Doesn't tend to happen at the rate. Maybe it's a little accelerated.
It feels like, you know what I mean? Like all those cattle dying.
That whole thing was bullshit. 100% bullshit. Like I said, and honestly, I hope at some point we'll get the show to the point where financially we can do it, where we build it enough and we have enough revenue to come in that when something like that cow thing happens, we're flying out there, we're bringing the camera, and we're interviewing people because I have animals and...
You've had extreme temperature swings.
Yes, and I also have seen an animal that I had to put down that was dehydrated and not doing well because the animal was sick, and then you put the animal down because it's cruel not to. And animals that die of heat stroke and are dehydrated don't look like the freaking cows out there that look like they're just ready to go to slaughter.
Well, they look like they just...
And they don't die with their legs straight out standing
up and bloated.
They don't die that way. I've seen how they die. So it's a complete bunch of freaking bullshit. And so those are the things.
How do we prove? You're right, though. Like, we can't necessarily prove it. And I think that I did see guys like us that are out that way that did go out there and interview. So it's actually out there now. So somebody with a little show like ours went out and did it.
Yeah, because like I said,
that's where you got to get your dues from, those kind of guys.
Yes. Like, I would have went right out and I straight up asked him. And I don't know, I probably would have asked, like, can I get some blood out of that animal? Because I want to have it tested. See what really happened here. Yeah,
It would be interesting to see.
Wouldn't it be?
Just odd.
Doesn't happen.
I mean, that's such a large amount. Now, if they all ate clover or whatever, that's another thing. If they ate something that...
As long as those animals had the water they needed and food, that they wouldn't die.
Yeah, it was a lot.
They've been raising cattle out there for how many years?
Yeah.
It gets hot. And then we even did it on the show. We looked up, and that wasn't even the highest it's been out there. It was like a couple years prior to that, it was like 112 or whatever. It was higher temperature, and it didn't happen then.
Yeah, we even
It
looked
gets
up...
hot as hell in Texas.
Yeah, it gets really hot.
All the cows just don't drop dead.
No, not from a... We looked at the temperature swing that was reported, and we had like a similar one from 68 to like 90 something. You know what I mean? Like
Steve,
over a 2-day period, and your cows didn't all drop dead.
We have up here, and it's happened this year, we've gone from 20 below zero to 30 degrees. There's a 50-degree temperature swing. And oftentimes we've had it, 70 degrees where we have a beautiful, 65-degree freaking day. And then the next day it's like 50 and below. You're like, what the hell? Like, so it happens in the Northeast all the time. It's not long periods of time, but it wasn't a long period of time out there either. Oh, this is what happened. Just like we said, we're going to go check out that crash. And then, luckily a lot of people came out there. And because I was a little apprehensive about it. Like, yeah, let's just run into some toxic wasteland and get something bad. But luckily a lot. But we did. I looked it up. It's 9.5 hours. Like, and stuff like that. Like the southern border. I'm like, yeah, let's go. Let's go down there with the cameras and show it. And which gets us into this next thing. I don't know if you saw it, but 4 Americans were kidnapped in Mexico yesterday. Or the day before.
A couple days ago.
Yeah, and, 2 of them are now dead and 2 of them alive but injured. And, they've killed the gunmen or whatever in the situation. I didn't look high. It just shows that you're now, as an American citizen, you're not safe to go to Mexico, even for vacation, as far as I'm concerned. I won't go to Mexico. Mexico has never been a safe place, per se. Because of cartels and different things, there's just certain spots you shouldn't go in Mexico, just like there's certain spots you probably shouldn't go in the United States, parts of Chicago especially that I wouldn't go. But it's gotten to the point now where I don't feel like you're safe to go anywhere in Mexico as a U.S. citizen because the unlawlessness has gotten so bad because of the open border policy of Joe Biden. Like 7 million people have crossed our border since he took office. 7 million. There's 1.6 million.
7 million that,
Hampshire.
by the way, get benefits that our own sick, tired, and hungry don't get.
And he's caused
that our elderly population doesn't get.
Yeah.
That our veterans who need help don't get.
Yeah.
That's offensive to me.
Yeah. Cartels have made, the biggest fans of Joe Biden is just going to be the cartels because do you know how much money they're making off of human smuggling and everything right now?
Human smuggling,
drugs, everything. And they've always done it, and it's always been something that we've all known about it, right? Seen it. But now it's basically
like open
it's
season.
just like open season for them. It's like, yeah, whatever. No one cares about.
Well, here's my thing though. As a Texan, I don't understand why all the men in Texas don't get their rifles and go down there and be like, our border's closed. You're not welcome. Like back in the old days, that's what would have happened.
Dude, I said this before, and
men would have stood up.
You didn't agree with it then. Maybe you won't now, but I would line the fucking border with mines and barbed wire and set tanks out there. You cross the line, you're dead.
I still disagree with that. But Now to
So
stop
how you gonna
it,
stop them?
well,
How you
to
gonna
stop
stop 'em,
it now,
Steve?
that's what I'm saying.
You're
is-
just going to let them walk past the tanks in the mine?
No, you finish the wall and you have certain entry and access points, like was planned, and you. The problem is everybody makes excuses. Well, they're escaping hardship. Well, those are fighting age men. They need to go back and fight in their own country and not bring their BS up here.
Yeah, they're escaping hardship, but why don't they just stay in Mexico? They're not escaping Mexico. Most of the people
Well, no,
coming
it
in
was
the United States aren't Mexican.
I think it was it Howley that asked the question about. I think we said it the other day, last week on the show about. The murder rates in 3 of our cities are higher than what you're allowing
We actually could, if you
people
live,
to seek asylum for.
if
So,
you
like, if you
lived
lived in
Yes.
New Orleans, Chicago, St. Louis, then you should be able to seek asylum in other countries
correct, because
based
the rate,
on the way that our policy is written.
yeah, because the rate was so much higher of crime rate there.
Because
than our
to seek
policy.
asylum, it's like 55 out of 100,000 is like if the death rate in your city is that,
Right.
then you can seek asylum here.
And those cities were like 74 or something. It was
Yeah, it's
way,
way above
way
the-
above.
It's crazy.
It's nonsense. And I mean, credit Texas is Abbott stepped up, and basically anything that's happening down right now to stop this is because of the Texas National Guard and the.
But I don't know. He's busing them deeper into the interior.
I know.
Like, I don't agree with that. Like, you
Bust
should
them the
bust them
other
back
way.
the other way. Like, why bring them in further?
What's Mexico going to say? No, we're not taking them. Oh, I mean, like, you're taking them.
Well, that's the thing is they walk through Mexico allegedly, and so why don't they stay in Mexico?
Exactly.
Why don't they go to the next country over? Why do they got to come
Mexico-
here? You know why they come here is because of all the free stuff.
Right.
And it's not free; it's our tax dollars.
Oh, you're Haitian. How'd you get here? You had to take a boat, so you could afford a boat. Not like we're not talking a little sailboat. We're talking like
You're not talking arriving in Florida. You're talking
yeah,
about coming
exactly.
up through.
These aren't Cubans coming to Florida. These is going all the way past that, all the way over to Mexico, and then coming up. Or you've got people from the Middle East now coming in. And why would they do this? Oh, because they know the border's open and they can just walk through.
Yeah, walk through and claim asylum.
Yeah.
I'm old school. Like, we as citizens of our country, our charge is to fix it. And it starts at the local level, getting rid of all the BS baby games. And you got to work your way up to the state level. And then you got to diminish and reduce the federal government. It's going to take, 50 or 30, 38 states or whatever to basically put the federal government back in check of you are overstepping your constitutional authorities with all of these made-up agencies that are sucking Americans dry with their tax dollars.
And I would argue, too, that not only is Joe Biden destroying the United States, which is clear as day, but you could say that the harm he's doing to Mexico is significant because the better the cartels do, the worse the people do. Because obviously not all the citizens, all the people that live in Mexico are not in cartels.
Exactly.
Mexico has a history of being corrupt, ran by cartels, supported by our CIA. We choose which ones we want to empower. And I mean, we can watch anything and see that.
Yeah.
But
news or Hollywood.
what do you think's happening to the Mexican people right now as cartels are trafficking people? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I feel bad. Yeah, I
about-
feel bad.
Think about it. You're from Texas, so, and granted, it's Texas and Arizona,
Mexico.
New Mexico, and California that obviously have some people coming in too, but it seems like most of it's coming in from Texas. But so you're from Texas, and you're a U.S. citizen, you're an ex-soldier, spent all these years in the military, serving your country, and because I talk about this all the time, this perspective thing, okay? So I know for me, if this was happening in Newport, New Hampshire, say it was happening and, people were coming in from Vermont and the same thing was happening and I was living it and seeing it with my own eyes and dealing with it and the government wasn't doing a damn thing about it, from my perspective, then I apparently have no government and I have no one there that's doing their job. So at that point, those people should be saying, all right, well, clearly I'm on my own here. And think about how deserted you would feel like, you're on your own. What do you mean I'm on my own? This is the United States of freaking America. I pay taxes here. Your job, your only damn job as a federal government is to secure our borders, trade relations with the states,
commerce between the states.
Yeah. So, and you're not doing that. You're just letting our country be invaded, which is destroying their lives currently worse than our lives, because it's a trickle effect for us because we're way up here in New Hampshire. But eventually
it's going
to affect the whole
bring a
country.
busload and drop them off at one of these
new places,
one of these workforce housing places.
So if you're sitting here and you're just all cozy and you're like, well, I'm in New Hampshire, wake the hell up, because if it happens there, it'll happen anywhere. Look what happened in East Palestine. It took them freaking 30 days or 20-something days to finally even go there. The only reason they went there is because Trump went there. Trump brought water, food, all this stuff, walked around. The government still hasn't done anything. They went out there, Buttigieg was like, oh, okay, all right.
And again...
And then blame the train company, blame Trump for his policies, even though his policies
which was
meant
a
nothing.
farce. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's sad in the sense of, like, Texas is crowded, right? It's just bad. Like, our tax dollars are being used for anything and everything but us, it feels like on the federal side.
Yeah. I mean, you have someone like, so, I don't know if it's DeSantis or I think Abbott was doing too. Abbott was sending busloads of these to New York City, right? And Mayor Adams is like all flipping out, and it's cost the city like huge amounts of money, which I haven't quite figured out yet.
Well, he asked for like way,
Yeah.
he asked for a tremendous amount of money.
But he's got a couple thousand of them, and he's like freaking out, panicking. Oh my God, we can't do this. It's a state of emergency, right? He's declaring a state of emergency about this. Yet 7 million have come through.
Texas and the other border
Right.
states.
That they've had to deal with in those 4 states.
And they're told to suck it up by people in New York City.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it's not real to them.
Yeah. So Abbott made it real to him. Now, like I said, I don't agree. I agree 100%. I thought it was funny as hell when DeSantis sent those to Martha's Vineyard.
And how quickly did they get rid of them with the National Guard
Within
escorting
one
them
day.
out? Yeah.
Because one thing I do know in this country is you don't mess with the beautiful people because,
It's rich people.
yes, and
It's,
Me and you are
the privilege.
racist.
The privilege in this country isn't based on skin color. It's based on money.
exactly.
Like
And I think
if y'all still think it's based on race, it's based on money.
and you'll find out
It's class warfare.
the most racist motherfuckers in this country are the ones with this stupid amount of money that drink their tea like this with their nose to the air. Those are the ones that you want to talk about white supremacists and all this. You want to talk about that and that exists? Oh, it sure does exist. It exists at levels so high that me and you never hang out with these people because we wouldn't hang out with these people.
No, exactly.
Because they're freaking scumbags. That's where it all is. And you saw it clear as day when a few illegals showed up in Martha's Vineyard and we immediately got rid of them.
They were so proud that they were able to send them on their way. Like so lame.
Fake-ass
yeah,
freaking
so
people.
lame and just disgusting.
Like I said, I was watching that. I only watched one episode so far. That Dope Sick and that Purdue friggin' pharmaceutical company. It's people like that. Those are the racist motherfuckers in this country that, or in other countries, depending where, this pharmaceutical company. Like these people like that, they go out there and buy their millions of dollars worth of artwork and all this. They care nothing about anything but power in their name. They don't care about anything else.
Oh.
And they're the ones that put all the money in these politicians' pockets, and then these politicians make the rules to protect them and only them.
Not us.
Bill Gates would be one of them.
That guy.
Crazy.
It's just disgusting.
So it's, it's now not safe to go to Mexico, do anything. Mexico, I've been to Mexico many times. It's a beautiful place, vacation
Well,
spots.
growing up in Texas, I wouldn't go through the town that they were in. Like everybody knows not to go to that town.
Yeah, there's places like once
Like going back to the 90s, I think some spring breakers took a wrong turn, kind of like them, and ended up just like that. And so, like, I've known since early 90s, maybe in the late 80s, don't go, is it Matagordas or Matagora, something, whatever town it was, it's well known, don't go to that town.
I was watching
At least in where I grew up.
I was watching a thing last night on it's called Rotten. It's on Netflix. It's about different food things and how corrupt, it's like chocolate and how like slave kids are picking the chocolate, the cocoa, So I watched it was about avocados, and that was a huge thing in the 90s. And then Clinton made a deal between Mexico, United States, and Canada about the whole thing, which I think probably caused more issues than it did good. But so there's a I can't remember the state, but there's a state in Mexico. It's near the bottom of the country on the west coast, and they had pretty much the state they had to arm it to protect it from cartels and stuff, because it got to the point where cartels the drug trade's taking a hit, but you guys are making huge money off avocados, and it was just crazy. And so it's a good show, just to show the corruption and the whole thing with the food industry. It's not quite what I thought it was going to be, because I know some of these things, but there's a couple shows on there. It's pretty interesting. The second one I watched just a little bit of was like grapes in France, and how they saw there's just a lot of wine in the war. Like wine's is a big thing, and it was interesting because it's southern part of France where they have some of the best grapes in the world, and then China's coming in and buying some of these places. He's like, well, they couldn't cultivate and do this in China. It was nothing. China's trying to take over everything, but it was interesting.
China's trying to emulate the U.S. I mean, we're spread out throughout the entire world, installing our puppets under the guise of democracy. We must censor people to protect democracy. If you have to censor anything to protect something, then you're obviously wrong. Going back to the 70 years or 60 before the JFK, and they still haven't released everything on the JFK.
And they're supposed to, 2 years ago?
And here's just another thing with Joe Biden walking across the bridge. Was that in Selma or wherever it was, where he was with
Mrs. No,
but anyway,
was that with Al Sharpton?
How? I mean, do they ever watch videotapes of this guy? Whatever. Just the
Talking about Sharpton?
Not even Sharpton's a charlatan, but Joe Biden
Tax evader.
Single-handedly with his crime bill in the 90s, right? He's so proud of.
That's how you know it's a scam.
Suppressed black men more than anything with that bill. With the crack epidemic, and then putting them away and just breaking up families.
And he constantly tries to talk like he was a civil rights leader.
He said some things. I'm pretty sure he dropped the N-word in a committee meeting back in the day. You can find all this stuff out there.
He didn't want his kids going to
it's so
jungle.
crazy. I can say this, and people who they just don't want to believe it. I'm not going to put it up here. You can go find it.
Yeah.
Of him being racist.
He's
not just the crime bill, but him actually being racist, and then to walk across a bridge with him and act like he's a friend of your community, of any community.
Yeah, and he's probably the most publicly information on him about racism and everything. He's probably the worst.
Yeah.
Easiest to prove everything we're saying.
And the weird thing is, it's a complete 180 of Trump, because before Trump was president, everybody loved him.
Yes.
They wrote rap songs. I think even Obama was like, everybody needs to be like Trump.
Yeah, everybody loved Trump because he wasn't a threat.
And he's a threat because he's not part of the system. It doesn't have anything to do with his mean tweets or anything else. It doesn't have any. It has to do with, he matter-of-factly says, I don't pay that much taxes because you wrote all the loopholes in it. Close your loopholes, and I'll pay more taxes.
Right.
Oh, you can't say that. Well, no, that's literally how it works in Washington, D.C. The lobbyists write the bills that leave loopholes in for big businesses with lawyers that can hire them to then, after they write the bill, then they hire them on, and then they exploit the loopholes while you and I get stuck because we can't afford a team of lawyers, or we don't, you know what I'm saying? Like, we can't donate so much and set up trust funds because we're not taught how to do that. We're taught how to obey, sit still in class for 8 hours a day from the time that you're 5 years old, where I'm a believer that you need to exercise and play up until a certain age, like learn through cooperation and collaboration and exploring and building things, not from sitting still when they're kids.
Yeah.
It's hard to sit still. Even when I was in the library, you have to be patient because, 12 out of the 14 might sit there and listen to the story. 2 of them are not interested in the story that you're reading, and they're going to go do whatever makes them happy.
Yeah, and the difference is,
I'm not mad at them for that. Like, well, come over here, let's.
But when we grew up, you went outside and played. But
Yeah, we did until
kids,
the street lights came on, or
Right.
you heard your mom yell out.
so then when you went to school, it was easier because you ran out your energy. You've done, you know what I'm saying? I mean, that's why kids that age have recess, right? Because sitting at a desk, you can't. The kids can't do it, right? Well, it's harder now, too, because so many parents, majority of parents,
Just
just
put a-
throw electronics at your child, and then you expect
And their
them-
attention spans are
Yes.
minimal because they watch 48-second to 3-minute clips, so that you can't keep their attention for an hour and a half on a
Exactly.
show like this.
You know, like Final Adelina all the time. Like we let her watch cartoons or whatever, and suddenly she doesn't want to play at all. And we're very like good about like she's not getting a phone, none of that stuff, none of it. But you see it. But then you have parents that just throw the electronics at their kids. Like,
Yeah, it's like, well, in the 80s, the TV was the babysitter.
yeah. Now it's
Like, not all of us sat inside watching TV, right? Because we were told you got to be outside the house.
right.
Like, when I
but
was
given
a kid,
the choice, we would have watched TV because watch TV.
Well,
Like,
when I was a kid, I didn't even get to eat at the table with the adults. You know what I mean? It was like, keep it down, don't interrupt us,
Right.
know your place. And if we didn't, then, we got punished. We got in trouble. We were held to account for not following the rules. Nowadays, kids run roughshod over everything because it's like people are afraid to say, stop it. I don't know. You know me. My rants always go back to responsibility is on the parent, guardian to instill good morals and values. And then the school, from my own personal view, is to help reinforce positive values.
I mean, school's there to teach kids how to read
Yeah,
and
but
write.
we want our teachers reinforcing good,
Absolutely.
positive
Right.
values.
Right, and it makes life hard when a kid comes to school and they don't have any of that stuff that they typically would have had.
Right. No, yeah,
I mean, I get it because I'll get pissed that the school oversteps their bounds with a lot of things, and I still think they overstep their bounds with a lot of things, but it's because I'm a parent that
that's
did the
involved.
things that I should have
Yeah,
done. Exactly.
You try to do the right
right,
thing.
and they're living a life of.
And after
we're not getting
teaching,
that.
like I have a totally different outlook on it because I know how hard any given day could be if a kid's having an off day.
Right.
That, you know what I mean, and that's a lot that our teachers and our paras, try to help and get these kids educated. It's not always easy, but like I always try to tell everybody, parents, we need you involved.
Yeah.
Take back control over your children, or your stewards if you're a guardian of your grandkids or nieces, nephews. Step up and hold them accountable. Teach them to be respectful of others.
Right, hold them accountable before it's too late, and then the law takes over when they're 18, and now they hold them accountable. What good did you just do your child?
Right.
When there's no rules until 18, and then suddenly you do something stupid, and they're like, well, you're going to jail now because you did this, and that's a rough wake up call when you could have just done your job as a parent. And
it's hard too because so you get to know the kids, and then some of them that have a rough home life, and then when they do get in trouble, how we're all like, even you were like, no, it's not that like they're wrong, don't work on it. But at the same time, I also see that like these kids aren't going to have a chance if somebody doesn't take an interest in them.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, depending on their age and depending on whatever
It's tough.
misbehavior it is, it's hard to figure out, like, can I help this person? Am I going to make a difference?
Right.
You know, just a kind word or a, you know, reminding them to wash their hands after they wipe snot off their face. You know, like, to just, like, hey, you go wash your hands. I saw that. Like, little bitty things like that, you know, it makes it worth your while, but also there's other days where it's very challenging. And I know from my own personal experience that if I got in trouble at school, regardless of whatever punishment I got at school, it was going to be 10 times worse if I embarrassed my mom and dad by my actions and behavior, because my actions reflect on them. So even if I say something on the show and my mom watches it and she disagrees with me, she'll call me up and be like, why are you talking about this? Or, you know what I mean? Like, but, you know, I'm not going to tell you how to raise your kids, but I will tell you that having discipline and instilling pride in your family name and actions, it goes a long way.
You know, the worst thing used to be is when, it only happened a couple times, but when I get kicked off the school bus and I had to go home and tell my parents that I wasn't allowed to go on the school bus tomorrow and they're going to bring me to school, or Harry Newcomb, who was the bus driver, would call my mom and dad and say I wasn't allowed on the school bus, and that was not a fun feeling. And that was like, I mean, today the kids would be like, oh, whatever, and half the parents would be like, oh, why are you kicking my kid off the school bus? Like, shit, we used to get in trouble. It'd either make me sit right up front and you watch me, or you could never do this today, but you'd have to sit like where they walk up the stairs, like you'd sit there. It's like, oh, you sit right there, and like physically can see you. Now, I mean, Jesus Christ, safety concerns. Like,
but
you couldn't do that. But like when I was in school, and it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I graduated 21 years ago, so it wasn't freaking that long ago that we did things. But to have to go home,
and I'm not implying, like, most of our listeners obviously probably agree with us on all this stuff. It's just, you know, part of making Newport better and moving forward and getting back control, because I'm telling you, I've taught, you know, a segment of the kids, most of them still go to school here, they're better than what the results show. And I'm not blaming it on the kids, I'm not blaming it on the teachers. I'm saying that systemically we have to look at, you know, test taking. Are they asking the right questions on these tests, right? Which that's for the teachers and administration, I'm sure, you know, but that's all done way up higher.
Well, one of the things Miss Meredith said to me at one point, because I had asked a question about, I think, testing, is they were testing, I think it was kindergartners, but she's like, some of the problem is that we're giving them the test, but they don't know how to use a computer yet. So, you know, for them to put things in there. And so it's like, some of it was just that even, like, so, and that's why I've said a few times, like, you know, I kind of like to see this test and see what it is. You know, is it?
But I'm telling you, like, and I said it when I was running for school board, our students are better than the test results show. I agree with that, because, you know, the board back then would say, the numbers aren't true. Well, the numbers are true. Right.
So yeah, they just want to address and the numbers are true. Unfortunately, yes, I agree with you. Our students are better than us. I know our teachers are better than us. You know what I mean? Like, our teachers are teaching. Yeah.
Like, it's not like they sit in class all day and let them willy nilly do whatever. Like, our teachers put in a good, solid day, and a lot of them are helping to instill good values in some of the kids that don't get it at home. And it's not like all the kids are getting values at home. It's
no.
You know what I mean? It's just the few. And then you got to look past that, right? So then you address the behavior issue, which I've mentioned many times before. As a, you know, someone who sees the bills, we spend a lot of money on behavior, on trying to mitigate behavior, and behavior specialists.
Right, doing the parents' job.
The parents' job, and, you know, is it? Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just have issue with that. Like, I wouldn't want my kid being seen by a behavioral specialist unless I asked for it, you know, type of thing.
Yeah, and that kind of, I think, goes back to a lot of the federal and state mandate crap that we get thrown with.
Yeah, like, there's a lot of stuff that comes in from the Department of Education.
Yes.
There are surveys that are sent down that don't have to be sent home and get approval. Excuse me, from.
And
that are asking questions that, quite frankly, I wouldn't want my kid answering.
Yeah, and that's what does it.
And I'm only speaking when my daughter was in school. I'm not talking about anything I've seen as a board member or
Right,
anything else. This
but-
was back when Zeta was in school, and she was telling me about some of these questions on some of these surveys. And then I asked a psychologist, and he was like, there's no way kids should be answering these questions without an adult there, because if it is actually happening, like, you know what I mean, it could be traumatic for them to have to answer those questions and think about them.
Right.
Especially if they're younger, because I think it goes down to like 8th grade. It's like one. Do you remember that survey? Yeah, I think we talked about it when we were running for the school board, but it really. And again, I haven't seen it. I'm talking about when my daughter was in school.
A lot of it is these
Couple
federal
years ago.
state mandates, and then it costs the school money, or it costs taxpayers money.
Yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
interesting.
Yeah, say the least. All right, I'll save this story for tomorrow. And yeah, school board meeting tomorrow, 5:00, Lou Thompson room. Voting next Tuesday. Don't forget that, please. And then the voting for the town's going to be, I think it's the second Tuesday in October. And obviously we'll talk more about that, but that's coming up too. You can sign up if you're interested in running for the select board. It's the 22nd to the 31st of this month. All that information was up on the website for the town too. That's where I got that. So,
Appreciate Doug Ring sponsoring us.
yes, thank you, Doug. He actually messaged me yesterday and said, "Hey, good show, and appreciate what you guys are doing." So I was like, "Yeah, cool, thanks." And thanks for Jeff for reaching out and saying, "Hey, you guys are wrong about that," because I want to be correct.
We want to be accurate.
Yeah, yeah. I may see things differently, and like I said, when I rewatched stuff, I was like, it almost felt worse, like because they didn't seem to do what they should have done. But that be as it is what it is. But it wasn't done in all public. It was done how seen. And you can go on NCTV and watch any of these meetings. It's perfect. You just click. It's all there, and you can fast forward. You don't have to watch the whole meeting. You can go to certain spots, and like I said, huge shout out to Jeff because he actually told me where to go. And usually it's someone will be like, "Oh, you were wrong," and it was in this meeting, and then like, yeah,
You gotta watch
I
2.5
watched the whole
hours.
meeting just to find it. But so I appreciate that, Jeff. Just because we don't agree on certain things doesn't. I don't know. And this to me, it's not personal.
Yeah, it's not personal.
This is all freaking politics. So, yeah. Thank you for watching. Thanks, Doug, for sponsoring. And yeah, enjoy your day, and we'll talk to you tomorrow on Tim and Steve Show.
Artlist.io